So this is after my first official duty as vice chair, I think, because the first meeting came up on my calendar. So um, I'm Ed Mullins, Reed Smith, and I am the honor of being vice chair of the section this year. And those who are new to the section, uh, the main job of the vice chair is to, essentially help run the committees and divisions and stuff, so that the chair can run the bigger events, but the vice chair really kind of serves as a role of running the day to day of it. So we're going to have a series of meetings on the various aspects of the committees, and today's the one of the most important. The three committee P's always are publication, policy. What was the other one?
Programs.
Programs. I knew it.
Programs.
I knew it. I knew it. Once I started that, I screwed that up. I'm going to bring the third P. So anyway, yeah. So this is one of the big three, big P's, and so great to have it. I'm gonna turn over to Joan, our publications officer, who will explain what we're going to do today and what the various ways you can get involved in publications.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Ed. And we're excited to be your kickoff session here. That's really exciting. Yeah, as Ed said, welcome everyone. I am the publications officer, the publications officer for this year, and I'm a professor at the George Washington University Law School. I'm really excited to have you all here, and I'm hoping that the session is going to give you information that you'll be able to need and use to have a successful year of publications with your committees. And I want to start off by thanking Lavinia. She's done a fabulous job helping us coordinate this program, providing support services to our publications team, and in particular to all of the committees. Many of you I know have probably worked with her in the past, and she really is a great support for all of us. So thank you so much, Lavinia, for that. So Lavinia, if you want to open with the first, let's go to the first slide. We have slides, a presentation, and just going to do a quick intro. This is just our introductory slide. I'll be introducing each of our speakers as we get going. But if you'd like to now move to the second slide, that's it. That's great. Publications is an important focus of the section and of each of the committees. And there are several types of publications that we have within the international law section, and each of them provides educational and professional opportunities for our members. Obviously, our members are both a primary audience for our publications, but often many of our members are authors who contribute to the publications. And it's a great opportunity to get to research and write and those sorts of things as well. Today's session, we're going to be discussing briefly each of the publications within the section: the International Lawyer, the Year Review, the International Law News, our books, and committee newsletters. And I want to begin by just thanking the editors of the three ILS publications for joining us today as panelists. Obviously, as editors, they are the experts on their respective publications, and they're going to provide sort of a general description of their publication and how it differs from the others, the types of pieces they typically are looking for from authors, some general guidelines with respect to publication, key dates for submissions and publications, and contact information. And of course, there's information about all of our publications on our website as well. Also, we recently sort of reestablished our section publications board, whose primary responsibility is to help reinvigorate our book program and provide support to all of you on publications. And Caryl Basat, a member of our publications board, is here today, and I want to thank her for being here today to present on books. And then I'll close with a focus on committee newsletters. As we're presenting, as we were talking about when we first opened, this is a meeting session, so it's fine for you to ask questions. But what we would like to do is, if you might want to put your question in the chat, because we're going to finish the discussion and then we will turn to questions. So you can put the question in the chat and then we'll answer the question at the end, and or when we get to the end, you can raise your questions as we get there. So without further ado, I'd like to get started. First up today is Patricia Hurd. She is clinical professor of legal research, writing, and advocacy at SMU Dedman School of Law and is the co-executive editor for the International Lawyer. And she's going to give us some insight into the International Lawyer. Take it away, Patricia.
Thanks, Joan. Yes, so TIL is what we call the International Lawyer, is different from the other section publications because it's what we think of as the kind of law review journal that we all knew from law school. So it is our scholarly journal. I realize as I'm looking at this slide that I failed to correct. This is the section scholarly quarterly journal. It's actually 3 times a year now because we also publish the year in review, which is the 4th one, but they're separate publications now. So that's actually not quite right, my mistake. So the International Lawyer is a 3 times a year academic journal, and we have a different ISBN number and everything. So it's a separate publication now. It's run like you would imagine with a student board and so forth, with a lot of faculty oversight by me and others because of our connection to the ABA. We have, and a remarkable in with these practicing lawyers and so forth. So we have rolling deadlines. It's not like some of the other things you're going to hear about that have hard deadlines. Ours are, as long as we get 3 issues out a year, we tend to just take the best articles as they come, and when we fill up an issue, we publish. So I don't have deadlines to give anybody that would be helpful in that regard, but you can always email me, check with me, and I can tell you where we stand at any point in the academic year, the publication year. We usually don't have subject matter issues. So it's not that you have to wait till we're publishing something that is in your area. We take everything all the time, with the occasional exception of a symposium issue, which might be done more topically. But that's the exception, not the rule. So everything's kind of fluid, topics and deadlines and so forth. But we have a lot of course, very specific requirements, which you can find on our website through the ABA or through the SMU website. They're not hard to find, which are just basically, what you expect for an academic journal. They're long articles. They're not as short as some of the other ones you're going to hear about, and they have sourcing and citing requirements and so forth. But the come and go of it varies all the time, and I'm probably the best way to figure out where things stand in that. A lot of the authors that we publish are academics, and that's great. We love that because it's an academic journal. But what we really also want to encourage is the practicing lawyers in the section to be authors in TIL. It's good for everybody. It's great for us because we want and to publish things that have a practical application. I think that's good for the section to get it out in this way. And it's good for our students to work with that sort of author and so forth. And we're hopeful that as section members prepare programs of any type, presentations or so forth, that maybe you keep TIL in mind, because oftentimes it's not that big of an additional ask to start preparing something that could turn into a TIL article. And so, I'm not talking about maybe starting from scratch. If you're already going to be on a panel, it might even produce an article together. There's a lot of ways to do that, keep all your sources and think about it in that way. Because it can turn into a great article for us using the valuable practical insights of the section. I think that's all I'm going to say. It's what you think of as an international law journal published by a law school, and I am always around to answer questions. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Patricia. Very helpful. Like I said, if anyone has any questions, we'll address the questions when we get to the end. But it would just be good to sort of give everybody an opportunity to share their thoughts about their publications. So as Patricia mentioned, there's also the year review. And we have Kimberly Holst here with us, who's clinical professor of law at Arizona State University, Sandra Day O'Connor College of Law, who is a co-editor of the year review, and she's going to give you some of the details with respect to that publication. Thanks, Kim.
Hi, thanks, Joan. So yes, I'm Kim. I work with a co-general editor, Rosa Kim, and actually the slide didn't get we didn't get the updated slide in there. So Jason was our co-general editor for years and years, but he's rolled off and on to other endeavors. So we are Rosa, Kim, and I are the co-general editors. Patricia, who you just heard from, along with her colleague Bev DeReyes at SMU Dedman, do the actual publication aspects of the editing process. So their team of law students, they go through, they do all the citation checking, they make the articles publication ready. So it is a very much a team effort in order to get this publication out the door. And as I talk about what the publication is, if we could go actually to the next slide that has the important deadlines, because this is such a team effort, I really do want to bring your attention to the deadlines for this particular publication. So unlike the International Lawyer,
You just hit.
oh, what
mute.
happened?
Yeah,
Sorry, I
that's
don't know
okay.
what happened there.
You're good. It's fine.
So our publication is very specific. So what we are looking for are updates from each of the committees on their particular subject matter. Sometimes that is a geographic subject matter like Africa or North America, but sometimes it is a substantive or topical subject matter like business or litigation, something along those lines. So whatever your committee is, you have a specific area. We are looking for updates from the past year that occurred in that area. So what we are not looking for are full law review articles discussing something in great depth. We're not looking for advocacy pieces trying to articulate why something was good or bad that happened in the past year. And we're not looking for the historical development of something. What we really, really, truly are looking at is like what happened in the last year with regard to your particular committee's topic. And that's really it. And as a result, our word limit for the articles is just 7,000 words because we are looking for something a little bit more concise. We want this to be a resource that folks can go to and, you know, quickly get a sense of the developing law. So if you have any questions about kind of the subject matter piece, please feel free to reach out to me or Rosa, and we are happy to chat about that. And we also have, and this was put in the chat by Lavinia earlier, we have already scheduled a Q&A session for committee editors on October 9th, 2 o'clock on Zoom. So please, please, please consider registering and attending for that because I think it will be helpful. Some of the things that we just want to call to folks' attention at the outset is that you will need to start, you know, pretty quickly identifying, you know, who your committee editor is and letting the American Bar Association know who that is. And then just as quickly after that, who your authors are going to be, because they will need to get to work and have that article to us by no later than December 1st. We had kind of gotten a little forgiving with some of the deadline stuff post-COVID because so many people had, interruptions in their lives that they weren't anticipating. But we are going to be a lot more firm this year with that deadline because we want to get this year in review out in a timely fashion. And the longer we hold articles up, the longer it takes for them to get put in the final publication. So that December 1st deadline is a firm deadline. Make sure that you have identified your editor and those authors right away in October. And for anybody who's a committee editor, we really, really want to help you create the best article. So take a look at the documents you're signing, attend that Q&A, and just know that as committee editors, we are expecting actual editorial responsibilities. So collecting those pieces from the authors, putting them together in a cohesive article from the committee, and making sure that appropriate attribution and citation are included in the document so that we aren't trying to send that back to you for those edits. So on December 1st, what we're really hoping for is a, very clean final document from your committee that we can start doing our substantive and citation types of edits, as opposed to sending it back to get some of these pieces after December 1st. So updates on things that happened in the past year with citations, 7,000 word limit, and those are really the highlights. But I did put it's in the slides, but it's also in the chat, kind of the link to the year in review and some of the details about it. But please feel free to reach out to me or Rosa to answer any questions.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Kim. And we really do encourage all of the committees, each of the committees, to submit a year review. That 7,000 word is a maximum limit. I don't think it has to be 7,000 words. It can be shorter. Although I know sometimes people find it difficult to get it within the 7,000 word, but I do want to be clear that it is a maximum word limit, and we do want to keep to that as well.
Yeah, there's really no minimum. I mean, we've had articles as short as about 1,500, and because that's what happened in the past year. So you don't have a lot of control over that. So thank you.
Right. No, that's fine. But we really do hope that everybody will represent your committee and your subject matter so that it is a comprehensive, review for the year, representing all of the various committees' subject matter areas. And Kim is right. The December 1, we really are going to keep that deadline, because we really would like to see the year review out earlier this year than it has been in the last few years. And the main thing that prevents that is getting articles at the beginning in too late, and then that shifts just the entire production schedule to back. So but this is a great publication and a great resource for everyone. So I really encourage everyone to submit. Thank you so much. Next up is Kelly Blount. She is with the organization Mothers Esquire and is vice chair for publications of the Lawyers Abroad Committee, as well as immediate past co-chair of the Middle East Committee. And most importantly for today, she's the editor-in-chief of the International Law News. So she's going to sort of give us the scoop on ILN. Thanks, Kelly.
Yes, thank you, Joan. So the ILN has similarities to both the year in review and TIL, but is also quite different and unique in a lot of ways. So the ILN is much less like a journal than TIL. We try to have a variety of pieces. We don't have themed issues generally. In the past, we have had issues where we receive a number of articles around the same subject. And so we don't make it necessarily a themed edition, but we do try to highlight the fact that this is kind of a focus on something. So in my time as on this team, both as managing editor and editor-in-chief, I think we've only done it once. We're definitely open to it, but we find that it's limiting in terms of getting contributions. So the ILN is not quite a law journal. I wouldn't call it a magazine either. We still look for very high quality work that must be properly cited. It's not necessarily Blue Book. We're somewhat open to whether authors prefer footnotes or endnotes, as long as it's consistent. And we check the citations, and everything needs to be cited, but it's a little bit less strict. We have contributions from all over the section, covering animal law, environmental law, M&A, pretty much everything, as long as it's within the purview of international law and it's relevant. We do allow republications of certain things. We generally try to persuade authors to rewrite something or maybe give a synopsis of what they published elsewhere. There have been cases where we will allow it, but we have to make sure that that publisher agrees and that proper attribution is given. So we try to avoid that, but occasionally it comes up. So it's not necessarily a deal breaker, but we do try to work around that in some way. A lot of our authors are not ABA members, so I'll come back to that at the end, but we have a very wide pool of authors. And so a lot of our authors that are within the ABA get funneled to us through their committee leadership. So definitely, I really hope that committee leaders are sharing this publication possibility with their members, because it is a really great way to get a piece published. The types of pieces that we publish also, like I said, vary quite a lot. We try to avoid long form pieces as much as possible. We set the limit at 2,500 words. In the past, we've accepted pieces that were much longer, but we break them up into a series. So this is a quarterly publication. So for instance, we accepted a piece that we broke up over three editions. We try not to do this. We want the ILN to be very digestible and not just be full of very long pieces. We will accept them, but we do ask authors to kind of vet it in advance and let us know so that we can plan for it. We don't want the entire publication to be super long pieces, because we also want pieces that are short that somebody can read on their commute or page through and find some tips for a particular area of practice or a book review. We also have started this year actually a really great feature this past bar year. Karen, our managing editor, had come up with this idea. We have a recurring section called A Lawyer As. And so we look to do an interview with a lawyer who doesn't do traditional practice. They're not in-house, they're not practicing litigation, they're working in government or they're in academia or something like this, to show the different paths, career paths that lawyers might take. We really, really are proud of this section. We've had quite a bit of variety thus far. And we also hope that this is attractive to young lawyers within the section, because we find this to be a very valuable piece of information. So we really run the gambit of different types of articles. We look at legal developments or legal issues that in a certain field that are due for advocacy, or really can be anything as long as it's relevant and cited, and we try to keep it as objective as possible, but we also make the disclaimer, these are the author's views. So really, we're very inclusive. Like I said, it is a quarterly publication. I will share the guidelines in the chat. These are last year's guidelines. The dates are the same every year. So the only thing that's changing is the year. So it's October 15, January 15, April 15, and July 15. That's the same every year. We do accept submissions on a rolling basis, but they won't be published until we get to those dates. So the summer edition actually for this year should be, it's now finalized. And so we're just working with the section on putting it together. So hopefully it'll be available very soon. And one of the things that is exciting, another development this year, is that now the ILN is put online in the way in which I think it's the business law section shares their comparable publication. And so in addition to the PDF version, which will still be available, all of the articles will be standalone on the website. And one of the things that we ask the authors to do is to give us tag words for their article. And so we have a database in which there are certain tags that we can choose. And so that's the same tags that are available for the articles. And so if you go to, say, the arbitration committee and arbitration committee's page, and we just published an article on international arbitration, that's tagged to that page. So in addition to finding it on the ILN page, you'll find it in other relevant places, such as the committee page. I'm sure there are other places. I'm not quite sure exactly how many places that you will find it, but it's now across the website, so it's much more accessible. But the PDF will still be shared in the usual way, which it's always been. In addition to the tag words, we also ask authors to provide an abstract. And this abstract we also use for the website to give a brief description of the articles. Christina Haidt, who's on this in this meeting, is wonderful, and she puts all of this together. So I can't take credit for that, but we do try to get the authors to provide that information so that we and she do not have to go back and do the extra work on that database. Another thing that's changed is for the website version, not the PDF version, if the author is an ABA member or a section member, we include their bio for the purpose of the PDF. But in terms of the online version, their bio will be linked directly to their ABA profile. So you can see their profile, I believe you can see their affiliations in terms of committees, their practice area. So that's another way in which we're streamlining the ILN. I believe that is pretty much everything I wanted to say. Like I said, it's a bit different than the other publications. we have a bit more freedom. And so we're trying to make it very accessible and very digestible, but still relevant and informative and interesting. So I think that's it for me. Thank you, Joan.
Thank you so much, Kelly. That was great. Yeah, and our new website, really, I think much of what Kelly mentioned, I think, is also being done with the articles for Till and even our committee newsletter articles, where you can still see the entire newsletter or whatever, but also each of the articles are separately posted so that they can be linked to appropriate places within the website. And it really enhances the accessibility of these pieces for folks. And it's just a great opportunity for the authors too to get their work out there and their names out there. So and it's the ILN, because it is much shorter than than a Till article, a full-blown academic article. It's really a great opportunity for folks to get published. So thanks so much, Kelly. All right, let's turn now to the opposite extreme with respect to at least length and getting things published. Next up is Caryl Basat. I want to thank her so much for being here. She's an ILS leader and a member of our ILS Publications Board. And she is going to chat a bit about our book program. Caryl, take it away.
Great. Thank you very much, Joan. Yeah, I'm pleased to be here. I actually was publications officer when 2 of these books were published that are now on your screen, The Export Controls and the Guide to Human Rights Due Diligence. And it's absolutely correct. We are the opposite in terms of depth, length, time, etc. With the book program. A little background on this. As the slides mention, there's actually 3 purposes to the book program. The first one is obviously to get out useful information that can help members of the section and ABA members and really anyone who's interested in that particular topic with useful information for their practice, for their career, or just on general legal issues. The second purpose is to provide another forum for more in-depth written work. And, it really showcases the backgrounds of people that commit to writing these books. Now, when I say commit to writing these books, there's really a couple of ways you can do it. I think the most common that I've seen is that you'll have an editor or editors and a variety of people contributing chapters. And first of all, that's easier for the editor in a sense, because they don't have to write the whole book, although they are the one responsible for chasing down everyone, making sure it's done, making sure it is properly edited and so on. So, I mean, they do have management responsibilities, but they don't write the whole book. On the other hand, we have had individuals, 1 or 2 authors, write the whole book. And I believe the book in the middle was one of those. I'm not entirely sure. Anyway, the third goal of our books program is that they do have to be profitable for the section. I mean, it costs money, to produce these books, and so we do want to make money from it. Now, when I say we, the section doesn't act. They are actually the sponsor, but we work through ABA Publishing, which is a big ABA organization. And there are a variety of steps you have to go through in working with ABA Publishing. We actually have an executive editor that is assigned to our section who doesn't work exclusively with our section. Most of the executive editors have, 2 or 3 or more sections they work with, but it's kind of their responsibility. And let's say you're interested and you might want to submit a proposal for a book. You've got some ideas. The first step is, as I said, a proposal. We do have a form. I think it may be in the process of being updated because we have a new executive editor. So Joan, you would have to contact Joan about that. But in general, the kinds of information you would submit on this form is a working title. Again, it can change and probably will, but a working title, your information, a brief description of what you're trying to write about, what is the topic and so on. And then how I mean, this is kind of a general, this appears on all the ABA forums, is how does this book advance or relate to existing ABA or section policies and international legal issues? Now, one thing I'd like to say about this is that, we are the international law section, so there should be a connection with international law, but what we do want to do with the books is, publish something that could be attractive to somebody in another section or even outside of the ABA. You're not limited to strictly our section in terms of producing a book and marketing the book. In fact, we want you to get it out there to the whole world if possible, but there should be a connection to our section. And then they also on the forum want to know, is this geared toward beginners, intermediate, or advanced lawyers? And again, these are general questions. You don't, if you kind of think it may be both, you can indicate that. And then there's actually boxes to check, and it helps you in organizing, what you want to do. Is it a survey? Is it a monograph? Is it a manual? We've produced a number of manuals, a reference guide, or a handbook. And then, and this is a very key question, I'll tell you about that in a minute. Do you know other publications that are covering a similar subject? And I say it's a very key question because what we don't want to do is publish a book and lo and behold, there's the exact same book, or not the exact same, but very, very similar, produced by, say, the section of business law. So you've got two books competing. Neither one, ends up being profitable because, we're competing at the same time. Now, that being said, if there's a 10-year-old book that's somewhat similar, it's not a big deal. However, you do need to answer this question. You need to do your due diligence on this. And I just about 3 weeks ago had an experience myself where, as Joan knows, we're looking at publishing a book on energy that started with our energy conference in February, and trying to put together some of the papers and put, if you're interested perhaps in that subject, we're not limiting it to those papers. They'll be expanded, and there's other chapters that will cover other things. But about a month ago, I got an email saying, you might be interested in this book. And the book, it's coming out the end of August. And it was the first part of the title was the title I was thinking of. Haven't submitted the proposal yet. So I got a little nervous, ordered the book, and I'm going through it. And lo and behold, some of even their citations were citations I used in the paper I submitted for the conference. Not a major problem at this point. We can, work around it, change what we're going to do a bit, focus on a few other things. So it actually is good that I saw that now, but it can happen. And so it's really important to be aware of, what else is out there so that you don't end up producing the same or very similar thing. And then this is another key thing, is you do have to give a pretty good estimate on length. How long is this going to be? And the forum will kind of tell you how you can translate, type pages to typeset pages. And then another question they ask is, is this the sort of book that might be, there may be a new edition published later on. And we do that, as if you've been involved in the section for a while, you may see new editions of other books. In fact, this one of the books on the slides, The Export Controls, is a second edition of an earlier book that I believe sold out. So we do that from time to time. Again, doesn't have to be, but that's just a question to be considered. And then which authors and contributors have agreed to contribute, again, to get an idea who your authors are going to be. And then they do ask for a proposed table of contents, and then information on the editors, the authors, and so on. Now, one thing to be aware of is once you prepare this form, and it's a good, as I say, it's a good way to kind of get your thoughts organized, get your contributors organized, and to kind of an outline for where you're going to go. Once you finish this form and submit it, the Books Board will review it, and From there, it does go to ABA Publishing. They have a financial team, and the financial team puts together what's called the business case. And the business case is, reviewing. They come up with what they think will be the price based on, as I had mentioned before, the approximate length and so on, number of copies they think makes sense to produce and so on. And then they'll come up with a proposed budget and whether or not they think at this point in time this book can be profitable. And that's really important because the next step after that is a review by the section's administrative committee, and they look at that very closely. They have to, because as I said, we can't be producing, it takes time and money to produce these books. We want to produce a book that's profitable and that people will want to buy. You don't want to spend the time writing and have it not be purchased by anyone. So that's another really important thing, and it's another step in the process. And then assuming it's all approved, you get going. You get going on the project, and it is a long course. It can take anywhere from a year to 2 years from start to finish. Obviously, the faster the better. But to some extent, I have found I was an editor of one book, and as publications officer, I saw a lot of these other books through. There can be contributors that are slower, contributors that are faster, but you do have to stay on top of that because you don't want your information to get stale. You don't want another book to pop up in the meantime that might preempt you, etc. So it's really important to try to stay on top of it. Another comment in that regard is that when you are producing a book, it is different than International Law News or Year in Review or any of the section's other publications, in that you want material that's somewhat durable. So, obviously, things change in the law all the time really quickly. So some of it will inevitably have changed by the time it's published, but kind of long view things or things that people can look at and see trends are really, I think, probably the best for books. Or even if it's something that might change, you've got citations in the book that people can refer to see the most recent information. But I think keeping that in mind is that books are longer term. So you want material that's, going to be good or going to be accessible for the longer term. One other comment that often comes up, people often ask this question: do we do this, online, or do we do this as a hard copy? The way ABA Publishing is set up now, you do a hard copy generally first. I think at least during my term, you had to. Maybe they're changing that now, but I believe the way the production works and the way they're set up, you do a hard copy, and then there's also an online version. And I believe both are offered for sale, so people can buy the online version if they want. But unfortunately, I don't believe there's a way to sort of skirt that at this time. Although I think ABA Publishing, at least they've told us they're working on it. But unless something's changed very recently, I don't think there is. So that's about, one other thing, and I guess Kelly had talked about this in respect of ILN, is that copyright. Obviously it's really important. You can't submit material that's been published elsewhere in the book. ABA Publishing is pretty strict about that. It's got to be, they end up with the copyright. So you do have to check on that, and you have to be sure that your contributors are aware of that. And then one other comment I wanted to make in respect of the Year in Review, as I was an articles editor for one of the committees for several years, is that Year in Review is past year only, and a lot of times I would get things like, oh, this bill was proposed and it may or may not happen, next year. No, it's bills that passed. It's things that actually happened during the last year, not things that might happen or, sometime in the future. So with that, I guess I'll give it back to Joan.
Thanks so much, Caryl. I wanted to mention, Caryl mentioned ABA, and I want to thank Carly Wall, who is actually here with us today. Carly, I didn't know if you wanted to say anything about, particularly, I don't know if there's been a change on this hard copy versus e-version that Caryl mentioned, but I did want to just say thank you so much for being our liaison, and just offer you any, if you wanted to just mention anything to the folks here before we move to newsletters.
Yeah, just quickly, yes, we do do a simultaneous release of the hard copy and the ebook right now. We don't do one or the other. But the ebook version is really great because that's where we get a lot of our licensing deals with that version. So it's always good to have both of them. But yes, right now the majority of our sales, I would say, would be the hard copy version. But I am also here, as well as anyone from the section, if there's ever any questions about the process. I really, the book program is an amazing program, and we're always here to support anyone who's interested in writing for it. So, Joan, I can, anyone can have my email and shoot me any questions they have, and I can, help work on proposals or whatever needs to be done to kind of get more books into this program. So I'm here to support.
Super, thank you so much, Carly. All right, so let's, I guess I'm going to take the final lap here. Go one more slide, because we're going to turn to committee newsletters now. And the committee newsletter is your committee's publication. You decide what the content is, who the authors are, the length, the format, the publication frequency and deadlines, basically everything we've been telling you about all the other publications. This is your opportunity, right, to have your own committee's publication, and you get to set, whatever guidelines you think are good. Of course, it depends upon the needs of your members. Just a few things with respect to each of that. Content, right? The content can be really a variety of things. You can have short news items or practice pointers within your area, a subject matter area. You could have slightly longer, right, substantive articles, perhaps along the lines of the international law news on hot topics, or just interesting topics within your area. You also, though, might have member spotlights, right, where you spotlight certain either new members or members of your committee, updates and activities on your committee and the section overall. You can even have crossword puzzles, right? And we very often include pictures. You want to, really whatever you want as content that is useful for your members. And of course, it depends on sort of the scope of your committee. As we said, some committees are, for example, the Young Lawyer Committee, for example. So you want something that's going to be of interest to them versus the Animal Law Committee or the Middle Eastern Committee. So we are broken up in a variety of different ways, and you obviously want the content to be as useful to your specific subject matter area as possible. With respect to authors, very often its authors are from the committee members themselves, but they don't have to be. Again, anyone can write for your committee newsletter. And the length can be literally anything from 1 page to as long as you need. I mean, I would suggest that you don't have a newsletter that's 200 pages long, because most people aren't going to necessarily want to read that, unless there's some sort of special issue or something that that you're focusing on. But it's really completely up to you, right? What is best for your committee and your committee's needs. Publication frequency and deadlines. Again, that's up to you. We're hoping that each committee will publish at least one newsletter annually. You could publish, of course, monthly. I think that's probably pushing it. I think most of our committees, the most we have are perhaps quarterly, but it really is up to you, right? You set the deadlines and you set the publication guidelines as well. But like I said, anywhere between 2 to 4 issues a year is probably something to at least think about and try to target. And in terms of formatting, you are going to be doing the publication. We can provide you with some templates in terms of how it might want to look. You can, of course, view all of the newsletters online and see how they're sort of styled. Each of the newsletters sort of has a different style. And you can even reach out yourself to the newsletter editor for the particular committee. If you see a template that you really like, I'm sure anyone is willing to sort of share their templates. Or of course, you can develop your own. It just depends sort of on how comfortable you feel with the technology and the like. Copyright has been mentioned a few times, and I just wanted to make a point that every newsletter should have we indicate that this is the newsletter itself is copyrighted by the American Bar Association. But in addition, this notion of attribution, as Kelly mentioned, when the ILN, an author writes something, there's always the description, and you'll see this on virtually every publication that you'll ever read, right? This is the view of the author and not of the American Bar Association, the International Law Section, or your particular committee. And we have specific language that you can import into your newsletters, but you do want to make sure that you have the copyright as well as that sort of attribution when you're publishing your newsletters, because we don't want people thinking that something that's stated in a newsletter necessarily represents anyone's views other than that of the author. As you might imagine, right, publishing a newsletter promotes several important goals, particularly member engagement, right? You have a newsletter vice chair, but also you would have multiple editors and a variety of authors. So it's a great opportunity to get your members really engaged in your committee. It also promotes communication, education, and outreach. Obviously, your committee members are going to learn, what's happening in your committee, the section, the ABA, and around the world. Get to know other members of the committee and learn about a skill or a substantive area of the law or hot topic in their practice area. And in addition, of course, we share this information across the section. You should, of course, post it on your communities page, but the newsletters, as I said, are posted for anyone on the section to read, and you can even share it beyond the section in the ABA. And it helps you, it's a great way to attract new members to your committee, to show the type of work that your committee is doing. And finally, I want to point out collaboration, right? Collaboration is really important throughout the section. And a newsletter is one particular way to sort of help you outreach perhaps, or create collaboration and synergies with other committees within the section. If there are other committees that sort of intersect with your committee, you might either seek out individual authors from that other committee, or perhaps publish a joint newsletter of 2 or 3 of the committees. It helps you to get to know other people outside your committee, create synergies, and share the work with others. So all of these, I think, are really great. It's a great opportunity and something that you can create and you have the control over. So I really hope that everyone considers, each of the committees considers publishing a newsletter. Last year, we did a newsletter webinar separately from this session with a lot more details on newsletter publication. We're not going to redo that webinar again this year, but we have because not a whole lot has changed. We have the recording from last year, and I believe Lavinia will post the link, is posting the link in the chat. And if not, you can find it online, but you can check out that recording if you have any more questions about the newsletter. And of course, always reach out to me if you have any questions about the newsletter as well. So with that, I think we still have a few minutes, right, remaining. Does anyone, let's see, the chat, I don't believe there's been any questions posted in the chat yet. Does anyone have any questions for anyone, for any of us, or in general? Well, I guess maybe that's the good news, that we were just so clear and covered everything that no one has any questions. I do want to emphasize that, particularly I am here, I'm going to post let me send my email here in the chat. Hold on just a second. Let me send you my email, and I am more than happy. I can't do 2 things at the same time, so hold on just a second. I'm more than happy to answer any questions or help anybody with any of these publications, but certainly, of course, with newsletters, because that's the main thing that you guys are doing on your own. And please reach out to me if you have any questions. Ed, go ahead. Yeah. Yeah.
Just to wrap up, first, again, if you have anything, even on the other stuff you need to do as part of your committees, please reach out. That's my job. This is obviously a very important part of the section, and not only does it get us out there to the public, but it gets members engaged, and everybody likes to see their name in print. And these are all very important publications. I will say, it's been said a lot, the books are really got to be marketable. In the past, we've had some books that you know, I won't call them vanity projects, but they turn out to be that way. And so we vet those pretty strong, and it is a lot of work, but they are expensive. The other parts are critical. We need all these things done, and we, you know, year in review, the committee newsletters. So, and think about, especially on the newsletter side, think about getting younger lawyers engaged. This is a great opportunity for them to get their name in print. It's a great opportunity for them to get a resume line, you know, as they grow on their career. And what I often do is I also encourage authors. And I've written a lot, but it's usually I'm not the one writing them, co-author. So I get a summer associate to write something, and I put their name on it, and you know, whatever it is. So if you feel like I need a name to it, well, you know, it's not, no one's here, you know, with their ego, put as many names on as possible. We don't really care, but the point is we need the content, and you know, there's a lot of opportunities. One thing that we also did is gotten out to law schools. You know, there's a lot of publication. A lot of students have to write student works. They'll have to be heavily edited. It's not what we're looking for, but we've gotten content that way because they don't get published because their law review doesn't want it. Well, shoot, we publish it. So there's a lot of different ways to get content that will fit in one of these publications, depending on what it is. So it can be a lot of work. I really appreciate the hard work on it. But it's very satisfying. I've been an editor of the newsletter myself back in the day, and I know how much work it is. But it is rewarding work and extremely important to the section. I really appreciate you guys taking it seriously.
Thanks so much, Ed. Yeah, and you know, I'm obviously at GW, work with students all the time. In fact, I'm the editor-in-chief of the AIPLA Quarterly Journal, and it resides at GW, just like our journal resides at SMU. And number one, I mean, it's a great opportunity for students who are the SMU students who are working on TIL. But also, you know, we do try to get students, several of my students are members, particularly of the committee that I'm on, and you know, they help editing the newsletter. They can both write for the newsletter and help as an editor for the newsletter, and they're really interested to do that, to show, you know, what they can do and to get to work with each of us, right? Who I mean, the main reason the students are joining the ABA is to get to know the practitioners and be able to sort of learn from us and hear about what our practice areas are like and things along those lines. So it really is, these are great opportunities for students and of course, younger lawyers as well. So any final questions before we close up?